If I told you we were gonna lose power in 1 week, would you be prepared to survive the winter? Now, while a recession might not be as dire of a circumstance as that, it's important that we are prepared for the winter that is ahead of us. However, the bad news is technically we're already in a recession. The good news is it's possible to protect yourself and even thrive through a recession, and that's what we're about to talk about. But first, if you're wondering what a recession is and why interest rates are going up and have questions about all the other crazy financial news we've heard recently, let me explain. The definition of a recession, according to the United States, is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the market lasting more than a few months. Or it was actually a little bit more simply put by the European Union. A recession is zero or negative growth of the GDP for at least 2 successive quarters. Now, unfortunately, this already happened in the first 2 quarters of 2022, which is from January to June. Now, that was a lot of words, most of which I didn't understand until recently. So let me break this down and explain actually what you need to know. Step 1 is kind of understanding inflation. Now, inflation pretty much happens when too much money is printed too quickly. For example, when COVID happened, spending kind of stopped in its tracks. And this is terrible because the economy isn't making money. And when the economy isn't making money, people can't get paid. And then if they don't get paid, they can't buy cars or go to restaurants or even pay for housing. Now, to try to get the economy moving again, the government actually printed large amounts of money and then sent them out to us in forms of stimulus checks. But unfortunately, the more money that you print, the less buying power that money actually has. Now, lots of companies have actually with something called shrinkflation. So if you look at Gatorade, for example, they actually changed how much Gatorade goes into their bottles. So it looks like you're buying the same thing, but you actually are buying less liquid. It just kind of looks the same, and that's how they're saving money. So they're charging the same amount for less stuff. And this happens to a ton of different things. There'll be less chips in the bag, there'll be smaller drinks, whatever it is. Companies are using shrinkflation to appear that they're not going up in price while actually delivering you less bang for your buck. So simply put, when inflation goes up, you can buy less goods and services with your dollar. To counteract inflation, the government will actually raise interest rates in hopes that people will spend less. Now, at the same time, the government and banks will raise their savings account interest rates in hopes that people will save more money. So once inflation happens, the GDP will actually start to slow down. GDP is pretty much just the value of everything sold in a country. For example, if you sell cars, you're contributing to the GDP of your country. But if people are waiting to buy cars because interest rates are so high, the GDP lowers because people are saving money, and that in turn will lower interest rates. So once GDP growth is 0 or negative for 2 consecutive quarters, like we've seen so far in 2022, it's pretty safe to say that, yeah, we're in a recession. Now, there are a ton of other factors that go into recession, especially one as complex as we're in right now. So I'm not gonna dive too deep into all this. I'm just going with the bare bones of what you need to know. Now, before we get into how I am preparing for all of this, I wanted to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Cook Unity. Now, Cook Unity is the first chef-to-you meal delivery service. Now, one of my favorite parts about this is having diverse food that I haven't tried before, so it's very different. It's also delivered fully cooked right to your doorstep, so you can just throw it in the oven or the microwave and heat it up, and it tastes amazing. It's like going out to dinner, but way cheaper and honestly better than most restaurants around me, to be honest. Cook Unity chefs offer a wide range of meals with over 7 different dietary preference filters, including vegan, paleo, and gluten-free options. Now, I've had some absolutely amazing dishes. Last week, I had pork tacos with pineapple and salsa verde, made from Chef Akhtar Nawab. It was just amazing. I would eat that every day. But I also had some other ones, like Puerto Rican shrimp stew with Carolina rice from Chef Anthony Nichols. The shrimp were huge. It tasted fresh. It was amazing. I also had some amazing adobo flake steak with paprika potatoes and broccoli from Chef Annette Edmani. They have new meals all the time, and their plans are super flexible. So we were traveling recently and we just skipped a week. And while we don't have this like every day, it's a really good way to mix up our dinners and also not have to cook every once in a while, which is super nice. If you guys want to check them out, you can go to cookunity/Gabe Bult, or you can just click the link down in the description and use my code GabeBult50 for 50% off of your first order of Cook Unity meals, and you can try them out for yourself. Now, let's get back to the video. So right now, we're at the early stages of a recession. So how am I preparing for it? And how does minimalism play a part in all this? For starters, I'm making sure that I have an emergency fund. If you haven't done this already, this is a super important time to do it. This can be saving up anywhere from 1 to 3 months worth of living expenses. Personally, I'm going more for like 6 months worth of living expenses in cash. So that means I can pay for my rent, I can pay for my car if I had a car payment, but I can pay for all my utilities and food, everything like that. So if something drastic does happen, I'm not getting into debt because of it. And whether we're in a recession or not, making sure that you have enough money so that if your car breaks down or if there's a medical emergency, you don't get into bad consumer debt like credit card debt. It's just what most of us should be focusing on anyways, but it's especially important right now. Over the past month, I've been being a little extreme with my savings and just really looking at everything in my life and how I'm spending money and asking if this brings a lot of value and joy and happiness to my life. And if not, trying to cut it out. We're also trying to eat at home more. I've been doing some really frugal recipes. I've actually done a bunch of videos with different recipes that I've done if you guys want to check those out. And actually 2 months ago, we actually stopped spending for 30 days, like got rid of Amazon, everything besides like bare bones essentials, we just stopped spending money on. So really trying to make sure that we just lower our expenses as much as possible. By the way, if you're getting any value out of this video so far, it would mean a ton if you would subscribe. So once you've kind of detailed the necessities and you've cut down your expenses as much as possible, the next step is to pay off any credit card debt that you have, and that's especially important right now. When interest rates rise, so will the percentage that you pay on your credit card, as if it wasn't bad enough already. So as that happens, it's gonna become way harder to actually be able to pay off those credit card debts, and that's money that you won't be able to use for some steps later on in the video, which can make a huge impact in your life, but you can't really do that if you have large growing amounts of credit card debt. So now that you've built up your emergency funds, started saving money, paying off credit card debt, the next step is to try to boost your income at some point. For me personally, I'm doing a couple of side hustles. I've started making a few more videos on YouTube, which you might have noticed. I'm doing a little bit more acting and some other side projects that I'm working on. I actually shared a bunch of ways I'm saving and making money on this video here if you want to check it out at the end. Now these don't have to be huge amounts of money, but if you can live off what you're living off already and start making money from a side hustle, that's going to be a huge help for the next couple steps. Well, this might sound kind of counterintuitive with 99% of stocks probably going down. There is an important reason. Because you're already prepared for any financial emergency, any excess funds that you do have can be used to buy stocks and different assets at pretty much discounted prices. While everybody else is panicking and selling because they need money, because you're in a strong financial position, you can actually buy at those cheaper rates and pretty much dollar cost average your way in. This is pretty much just the idea of continuously putting money into the market, whether it's going up, whether it's going down, whereas a lot of people follow the news and they try to time the market. It's just extremely hard to do. So just putting money in continuously is actually just a great way to do it. You can set up things to make it automatic where you put in, even if it's a small amount every month, so that you can dollar cost average your way in. And you can even get started on this with some free stocks when you sign up for Webull. So if you want to get started with this, there is a link down in the description. It's the app I use. I really think it's a cool tool, especially right now. Now, if you are going to invest in stocks, I'd consider using the 90-10 rule. And that is to allocate 90% of the buying power, the money that you set aside to buy stocks, into low-cost index funds. Personally, I do VTI or the S&P 500. This way you can be spread out pretty much as evenly throughout the market as possible. Now, the other 10% you can allocate into short-term government bonds. Most recessions, like the one we're about to experience, usually last a few years. And if you're one of those people who are constantly watching the market, trying to buy and sell, for the most part, you're gonna make mistakes. So instead, you're not really looking for a quick buck, you're looking for a longer term approach here. So in the long term, once the market turns around eventually, you're gonna have a lot more upside than the people who bought because things were going well. Before we get into this new one that I just started investing into and I'm actually super excited about, the other option that I'm looking into is real estate. Now this might not be possible for everybody and it's a lot less appealing than it was like a year ago because interest rates have gone up so much, but you can still make a lot of money in real estate, especially if you do something like house hacking, where you buy a multifamily for a 3.5% down FHA loan, live in one unit, rent the other two out. Those should cover all your mortgages, taxes, and insurance, allowing you to live very cheaply and save a lot of money. Or if you have enough money, you can buy a rental property conventionally that should cash flow every month. Plus, as inflation continues to rise, your property value will rise as well. Plus, those monthly payments from the tenants will build you equity in that property. And that's a really big way that a lot of people make a lot of money in recessions, is when people can no longer afford to buy real estate because interest rates have gone up. Investors buy real estate at much cheaper prices and then just kind of wait out the recession and make a lot of money. Now, there are creative ways to buy real estate without a lot of money, but if that's something you want to do, you should read a couple of books first, but it is a really cool tool. Fine art. Now, I'm a little bit new into this one and didn't seem like something that was ever on my radar until I kind of looked at some numbers. As an asset, fine art has outpaced the S&P 500 for the past 26 years. Now, I personally don't have millions of dollars to buy art, but what I did find is a really cool platform called Masterworks. They've actually delivered an average of 29% to their investors. And I think last month they just sold another painting for a 33% return. So while I would never be able to spend millions of dollars on a piece of art, I was able to invest into a Picasso and get a couple other paintings and kind of diversify myself that way. There is a link down in the description if you guys want to check them out. Now, while I am not a financial advisor, this is my plan. It really comes down to spending less, earning more, and then investing the difference. It's this whole idea of financial minimalism. If you want to get some free stocks with Webull or check out Masterworks, there is a link down in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week.